Hey, this is Mike Kennerty from the All American Rejects and Screeching Weasel and Recording Shit. And you're listening to Nate on the Vinyl Guy.
Hey, record nerds, check out the next level audiophile furniture at sidetrackedworkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop makes beautiful record furniture. I personally have a Sidetracked Workshop double sidekick in my house, and it's not only gorgeous, but incredibly practical. Check them out for yourself at sidetrackedworkshop.com. Don't keep your records in crates, and don't trust that feeble IKEA furniture. Give your vinyl the respect it deserves with furniture from sidetrackedworkshop.com. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, ahoy there, mateys. It's Nate here. I'm not sure why I'm talking like a pirate, but welcome to episode 488 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Ladies and gentlemen, this week we are welcoming record collector extraordinaire, a member of All American Rejects, and record producer in his own right, Mr. Mike Kennerty. And I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. Mike is going to talk about his lifelong passion for vinyl collecting. Now, Mike started decades ago when records were cheap. He's never stopped. He's focused primarily on punk records. And today he talks about his rare Misfits singles, original Black Flag pressings, his best finds around the world as he tours around, including a NoFX record in Japan for $12. It's worth north of $1,000 these days. Mike shares his insights into record shopping while he's on tour, as well as his approach to vinyl production when he's mastering after producing various bands. Now, one of the things to keep in mind about All American Rejects, they are reanimating now. They are active again after taking several years off, and their recent tours have been the biggest ever. And today we're going to talk about the new All American Rejects single, Flagpole Sitta. It's a cover, as you may know, from Harvey Danger, but the All American Rejects have done their own version. Of course, you can buy that single at allamericanrejects.com. Also take a look at their upcoming live appearances, and if one is somewhere around your neighborhood and you can get to it, well, by all means, make your way there. And we talk about a lot more stuff as well. Mike talks about his early DIY days, funding early band 7-inch releases with his Taco Bell paycheck, and of course the effort for All American Rejects to keep their catalog available on vinyl. So again, I think this is going to be a conversation that record nerds far and wide will relate to and absolutely enjoy. And hey, if you're new to the Vinyl Guide podcast, well, thank you so much for listening. You know, we've got like 450 plus other episodes available. All you need to do is follow the Vinyl Guide podcast in your podcast app, and you get to enjoy tons of others, including Des Cadena, Black Flag, Misfits, and More, episode 482. Martin Rev of Suicide, episode 487. That's an amazing one. Don't miss that one. Of course, Jeff and Stephen McDonald join us to talk all about Red Cross and their new documentary, episode 476 of the Vinyl Guide. And of course, Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains joined us to talk rare records and upcoming reissues of Alice in Chains and solo material, episode 466. Henry Rollins joined us for a two-parter, talking all about record collecting, and that guy goes deep. Episodes 461 and 462, and literally hundreds more. Follow this podcast in your podcast app. If you feel like supporting us, hit us up at patreon.com/vinylguide. You get all sorts of extras up there, and we thank everyone in advance for their support. All right, with the upfronts done, let's get into our conversation with Mike Kennerty, record collector, record producer, and member of the All American Rejects. Oh, here he comes in, coming in for a re-entry.
All right, let's see. There we go.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to see your smiling face there.
Nice to see yours. I appreciate you having me on. I'm a big fan.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Well,
yeah.
The feeling is mutual, man. All right. Well, this week on the Vinyl Guide, we are welcoming to the show Mr. Mike Kennerty, who you know from various projects, All American Rejects. He's the guy behind the board of a lot of bands you probably have in your record collection. Mike, thanks for taking the time, mate.
I appreciate you having me on. I'm a big fan. I listen all the time.
Ooh, very good. All right. Well, you know how we grill people here. Are you or are you not a record nerd? Answer the question.
Oh, I'm very, very much a record nerd. Have been for a long time. Oh, yeah.
Tell me about your ailment.
Well, it's probably like a lot of people. I just always collected records all my life for sure. Like I started in the '80s when records were just records and it wasn't something you thought about in that way. And
It
then
wasn't a
you know,
currency at that time.
yeah, exactly. And then in the '90s, I got into punk in the early '90s, and so as that coincided with CDs becoming big, punk never gave up on vinyl, so I never gave up on vinyl.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've just bought records ever since.
So you're smart, man. You bought records, I'm assuming, at a time when they were at kind of this nadir, this ebb, and you probably scooped up quite a few interesting titles. What are some of the ones you're particularly proud of in your collection?
Oh, there's so much stuff, but yeah, I was fortunate in, I'm always a very frugal guy, but so like throughout the '90s when I really could have gotten some deals, I would still be like, $30 for a 7-inch. I can't do it.
$50 for the
But
Misfits. Forget it.
exactly. And I kick myself so hard now. But in the after the band started doing well for a couple of years, I was like, okay, maybe I can spend a little bit on some of these records I've always wanted. That's when I started doing stuff. And so, you know, mid 2000s, I started buying all those Misfits 7 inches and, you know, first press nervous breakdown and, yeah, all the stuff when I used to look at a wall in a store and see like a middle class out of Vogue and be like $70, and I was like, all right, fuck it. And so, you know, I got things when they were starting to go up still a little at that point, but definitely not what they are now, thankfully.
The phrase, oh, fuck it, is generally like that indicates a really good decision you're about to make.
You're right.
You're like, oh, fuck it, I'll spend $100 on this. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, shit, this is worth more than my car.
Yeah, totally.
So talk about your collection. You have quite an extensive collection for someone sent me a picture of your collection, which it's mostly 7 inches. You seem to focus on 7 inches a lot. Yeah.
No, I mean, I have a ton of LPs too. I don't know. It is maybe the picture of my rack with the drawer out.
I saw a Poison Idea, Pick Your King. I recognize that blue anywhere.
Totally. I mean, obviously, being a huge punk fan, 7 inches are a very important, big deal. But no, I mean, I have tons of LPs too, and yeah, I've just been lucky to amass things. And being in a touring band helps because then I can just, that's what I do every day, pretty much when we arrive somewhere. Is I just go walk into the nearest record store, and so
okay, yeah.
I'm
where's
carrying
Mike?
very heavy bags home.
Mike's late for sound check. Look. Where's the record shop?
There's been lots of sweaty runs back to sound check for sure.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about your collection because, again, you've got the benefit, you were there early on. Records were a lot cheaper. Of course, you're also traveling around the world, seeing record shops and finding deals, no doubt. Tell me about a couple of the things that you're particularly proud of in your collection.
Oh, man. I mean, some of those things I've mentioned before, like those old Misfit stuff and probably like the best like score I ever got was we were in Japan in Osaka and I went to Time Bomb.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a NoFX Longest Line, and even at the moment I was like pulling it out and I'm like, why am I even bothering? There's 300 of these on color, like 18 years prior or whatever, however long it had been at that point. And but I pulled it out and sure enough it was on gray and I was like, holy shit, and it was $12. So, and that's like a $1,200 record now. So that was crazy. That's probably the biggest like score I've ever gotten.
Oh yeah. No, when you go to a record shop, is there a place do you go new arrivals? Do you look at the wall? Do you go straight to punk? What do you do?
I guess it's where things are. I mean, the wall is definitely important. The wall is funny now, like in the days of having like a smartphone to like check out a store. Like when I'm trying to, because now we have that. It's wonderful. There's like so many stores. I actually have to pick which stores to go to in a lot of cities. And so I'm always looking at the pictures of the wall because that tells you a whole lot about what they have. But yeah, no, I love the wall, new arrivals, all that. I kind of just make my way as I go in and just see where it takes me.
Is it just punk that you look for, or is there other peruse jazz or anything else?
Not jazz. I mean, definitely all rock related things for the most part, but there is non-punk things. But Yeah, I mean, punk is the go-to for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any titles that you like double and triple up? Like something, a title that that it pains you to leave behind if there's a decently priced copy in the shop?
Um, no, I'm usually in the like pretending there's karma in the universe, and if I see something that's like a good deal and I already have it, I'm just like I'm leaving it for the next person, you know, because
Uh,
I would love to be that guy who finds that for a good deal. So yeah, I'm content. I'm content with one of any version. Now, granted, I have some records where I have a fucking way too many versions, but yeah, I'm not doubling up on the same exact one ever.
okay. All right. Like what's a recording, a record that you have multiple copies of?
Oh, geez. Well, Walk Among Us by the Misfits. I have way too many
Hmm.
versions of that, especially once I started doing all those color vinyl ones a few years ago.
Oh,
But
geez.
that was one of those things where I'd had, every variation of the original pressings. And then it was like, oh, they're doing one new colored vinyl. And then they did another. So each time I was like, well, all right, maybe I'll get this and just keep it complete. But then when they did that earache thing and did like 10, I was like, all right, fine.
Tap out.
But I still got some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, that I've had a lot of even before I met Ben and started working with the band, I had like a ton of Screeching Weasel stuff. And so like, I've got every version of Boogada you could imagine, all that stuff. There's just lots of bands, once I like hone in on my nerdiness, it goes hard.
Now, is it just records? Does it extend to other rarities? Any posters? Any paper? 8 tracks?
Oh yeah. I always anytime there's an 8-track like section anywhere, I always look for like Ramones ones or something. I never found one yet, but definitely paper like zines, flyers. I nerd out on that stuff hard and have I like I have a rack. I have racks for my records, but I even have like a zine rack. So I have like a zine zine
Oh,
library in my house too.
is all your stuff kind of custom built? You got shelves that are made specifically for your collection, or you kind of use IKEA or other things you find?
I lucked out in that there was this chain called Hastings that I think it was more just around the South, but it was like when I was real young, like they were like the mall store along with Sam Goody. But by the time like when they closed probably 10 years ago, it kind of turned into one of those stores that had like music and movies and just like an all media store. Anyway, they all shut down and they're selling all their racks. So I went and for pennies on the dollar bought these like huge awesome racks that have like 4 rows that can hold LPs at the top and then drawers that can hold 2 rows of LPs and then the bottom row I can put like 3 rows of 7 inches. Like it's crazy. And I got
Ah,
them for like nothing. It was great.
oh, beautiful, beautiful. Is there a holy grail you're still looking for? Something that you're hoping to find in the near
Oh
future?
man, there's uh, always stuff, of course, like stuff that it's too expensive now for me to ever pull the trigger. But like a Dick's Hate the Police or a Misfits Cough Cool. Uh, yeah, yeah. There's always things for sure.
Okay, all right. So that's something to keep in the back of the mind. Yeah, cough cool is just freaking off the charts these days, and it's so
Oh my
hard to
god,
determine what is a legit one because it's been counterfeited so much.
totally. I had an opportunity in probably like 2007 where a guy was selling one, and he wanted $800, which is about what they were going for at that point. And it was my first like all right, fuck it, which is
Hmm.
that still would have been the most I've ever spent on a record. But literally as we're like on a message board going back and forth, that day one ended on eBay for 1,200, and he goes, "Well, I guess the price is 1,200 now." And I'm like,
Oh,
"God damn!" And I
oh,
couldn't bring myself to do it. I wish I would have now, but
is that the only one you're missing in your Misfits collection?
yep, pretty much.
Got it. Yeah, there's some
Uh,
records where I'm just destined to say, I'm just going to own a counterfeit, or I'm just going to own a repress,
yeah,
like negative approach. I'm not going to get that first one. I might as well be happy with the one that Touch and Go puts out these days, and just
totally. Well,
like,
now that they've like made the cover like, better again.
yeah, 100%. What's the most you've ever paid for a record, Mike?
I want to say And this one's actually probably by far. I bought the first Fear 7-inch for 600, and
Ooh.
that was yeah. Which I'm happy I did that now because that one's obviously shot up. But even that at the time, I was like, oh my god. But most everything else, I've never gone really beyond like 3 for stuff. Like
Mhm.
again, because I was lucky early on, or I've just held out and found good deals and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You
because
got to
in my heart, I'm a cheap bastard.
well, you got to know when to walk away, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, once it starts getting into triple digits, it starts to kind of raise the eyebrows a bit like, is this something I really need or am I just kind of getting this
hmm
because I feel I need it like a completist. Like maybe what you do
Yeah.
with Misfits. Like it's clear you love Misfits. I love Black Sabbath, but there's only
Mm.
about 7 albums that are worth a damn, and the rest of them have a big drop off. And those are the ones that are more. I'm not going to pay to be a completist if I'm not going to listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. That's where I'm like with Ramon stuff. Like I have everything except Acid Eaters, which is like the most expensive one. And it's that same thing of like, but it is my least favorite by far. And so I've been holding off to, hopefully find a cheap one at some point.
Do you go for like international versions?
Oh yeah, I love that stuff.
Okay.
We actually toured earlier this year in Brazil, and it was like really exciting to get to like find some international versions of stuff there.
Okay. So your career has been quite eventful. And you spend a lot of time behind a mixing board, each side of the glass, right?
Mhm.
When you're preparing a record, when you're recording a band, do you think vinyl? Are you guys thinking about the end result and what sort of, I guess, changes or alterations do you do to adjust for that end state?
I think during the recording process, probably not so much. It's just, making it the best it can be. But definitely when it gets to mastering, definitely make sure and make a master that's, one for the digital that can be slammed and then one that's like appropriate for vinyl. And I try to be as hands-on as I can with bands and labels with stuff I've worked on to like try to get test presses so I can really listen and like make sure everything's cool. But yeah, I mean, I definitely take it very seriously. But it usually is kind of like towards the end of the process more.
Okay, so you do a different mixes or not maybe different mastering for digital
Yeah, for sure.
versus final. Okay, all right. And I imagine you're the deep listener of the band. You're the purveyor. You're the arbiter of the test press.
Oh yeah, and with our band too. The with all the packaging for the vinyl and stuff, I'm definitely the guy who happily takes that task on.
Oh yeah, you don't make all the decisions, but you get it as far as you can before sharing it with the rest and getting them to vote.
Yeah, totally. And so yeah, like especially with a lot of all our albums pretty much came out in the big CD age and on major labels. So there's lots of like cooks in the kitchen with that stuff, especially when it came to the CDs. And I've always like the CD artwork. I was always like it felt like a compromise. So then I would get handed the vinyl, and I'm like, all right, I get to make it how I envisioned it. And so I always feel like the vinyl is like the definitive way those records should be like looked at from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, step aside, everyone. This is my theater of war. It's
Exactly.
I'll take everybody. Do you ever reject the test press?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks when you have to because it's a lot of money to replate stuff and recut but sometimes if there's too much sibilance or too much intergroove distortion or any of the things that's just like you can't settle. You got to make it as good as it can be.
Give me an example. Like, what's an album or what's a record that you had to go back once, twice, maybe more times?
Actually, right now there's I remixed. It hasn't fully been announced, but I remixed a Screeching Weasel record, one of their classic ones. Most people could probably deduce which one it is because it's been. I think this might be the last one that hasn't been
Okay.
reissued or remixed. But we've been having a hell of a time with the tests and the just every step of the record part of this one. From yeah, bad cuts, a bad plant, switching plants again. And yeah, it's been definitely been the most of like having to recut, replay, do everything with this record. But we finally got it, and I think it's good, and everyone's happy. And yeah. And you know, it's always hard too, because you know, when you work with like a small independent label, it's like really is like that's the biggest financial part of pressing a record is doing those cuts and doing the plating. You know, the actual number of pressing of the number of the records is kind of the cheapest part. So it's like it hurts when you have to redo that stuff.
But is that something that's typically covered by the pressing plant, or was it a studio goof up or something on the band or the label side that
it depends on the first one. The guy who did the cut acknowledged he was like, oh, it wasn't up to par, I'll recut it for free. So he did that. But you know, I'm not the label with that, so like I don't know if he had to repay for like the plating. Yeah, so some things get covered, other things don't. And yeah, and that's one of those things where it's like I feel bad. But then we got a test press back, and it was like pressed. The B side was pressed off center, and so that's definitely a plant problem. And yeah, so that was the point. I think we switched to plant because I don't know if they were I don't know. I was kind of like staying off of the actual drama and just being like, "Here's what I hear." And sorry, it's not sounding great.
Yeah, you don't want to be the asshole, but sometimes you got to be the asshole.
Totally.
And meanwhile, you have those other test press here. It's like, okay, all right, let's sock those away. The rejected test press, because some of those rejected test press are quite crazy. There's a Saints test press of "I'm Stranded." I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Back in the day, 78 or whatever, where it was a totally different mix. They went in, they did some remastering, balanced it out, and pressed all the copies that we hear to this day. But then those test press still float around and are like, 5-figure test press. So
I can only imagine. That's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. You got your retirement portfolio. So in terms of All American Rejects, so I understand now. I've seen the latest video for Flagpole Sitta, which I think everyone was very delighted to see. I guess things are starting to kind of wind back up in the AAR camp. Would that be fair?
Yeah, we had a few years there where we just kind of took it easy, and I don't know, just didn't have any sort of we burned ourselves out pretty good for the first 10 years or so of being a band, and so we just kind of decided to take it easy, and then we played that When We Were Young festival the first year. They did it like 3 years ago, and the response was crazy. We're kind of feeling like, if anyone even remember or give a shit about us. And that showed that there is, I think we're in this pocket of nostalgia for kids who were, in middle school when we were like a big band and now want to come see us again. And so we toured last year, and it went amazing. It was the biggest tour we've ever done in our career. And so we've been having such a blast. We're like, all right, I guess the next step is start working on some new songs. And so yeah, we started off just doing that cover of Flagpole Sitta just to kind of, dip our toes back in the water, see how it felt to get in the studio. And that was also a blast. So we're starting to do more, starting to work on our own songs now.
Excellent. By the way, are you a fan of the British program Peep Show by chance?
I'm not familiar with it.
They use Flagpole Sitta as the theme.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And it's hilarious. Anyway, I'll send you some links if you want. But yeah, starting in season 2, that's the theme of the show. But every time I hear Flagpole Sitta, I think of that program. So the decision to start with a cover, that was just, again, the toe in the water.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, we hadn't been in the studio together since 2017, I think. Mm-hmm. And so, it was kind of like, well, this is easy. We know, the song is what it is. We can bring our own flavor to it, but it's like, don't have to worry about any kind of like, creative things with figuring out our own song. Yeah. And so, we spent like 2 days at our guitar player, Nick. He has a studio in Nashville. Just went to his house and did it. And it was great.
Yeah. And after being apart for so long, I mean, you guys are keeping in touch throughout all these years. Is it awkward? Is it difficult to kind of get things back in motion?
Because we never really stopped playing shows. We just kind of weren't playing very often. So we still saw each other plenty. But yeah, it is just like feeling out what being in the studio, what working on new stuff feels like. We thought it might be weird just because it'd been so long, but it actually wasn't. It kind of, just it was like we never stopped. So thankfully, and so hopefully the new stuff people dig. We'll see.
Right. Okay. New stuff. Okay. So more things
Yes.
coming on. I believe there's a new single in the works, and I'm sure that's not an orphan. What do you think All American Reject fans can look forward to in 2025?
Yeah, definitely more stuff. We know it's not an orphan. It's at least a duo at the moment. We got a couple songs we're working on, and yeah, we're shooting videos. We just did one with Joseph Kahn, who's like insane video director, and I don't know how we managed to rope him into doing this little song for us, but it's amazing. It turned out incredible, and so yeah, so we're just sort of we're wading in. We're not just jumping in the deep end. We're gonna we're doing a couple songs. We're gonna put those out, and see where it goes. And hopefully, the plan is to definitely do more in this in over 2025. Start working on more stuff, tour more, and we'll see where it goes. We're that's the thing is we burned ourselves out so hard doing the grind of make a record, support it, tour, get right back in, make another one, that we're just going to go our own pace, see what happens.
Right. Are there any All American Rejects albums that aren't available these days? Because I think a lot of them were released in kind of that early 2000s, mid 2000s, originally limited numbers, but I think most have been reissued by now. Is that right? Hey there, audiophiles. If you're seeking stylish furniture to showcase your stereo and record collection, well, look no further than SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop designs extraordinarily elegant record cabinets and consoles that add sophistication and panache to your music hobby. Handcrafted in the good old USA in the vinyl-loving city of Portland, Oregon, Sidetracked Workshop's designs are a music lover's dream. Made with real walnut veneered wood and brass accents, these gorgeous designs add class and taste to the record room and ship fully assembled and ready to enjoy. Just check out the designs for yourself at SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Look, you spend thousands of dollars on records. Don't keep them in a crate, and don't risk your records on those feeble wooden pegs from IKEA. Your music deserves the dignity of Sidetracked Workshop. That's SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Elegant solutions for the vinyl lifestyle. Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VinylGuide10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. Are there any All American Rejects albums that aren't available these days? Because I think a lot of them were released in kind of that early 2000s, mid 2000s, originally limited numbers, but I think most have been reissued by now. Is that right?
Yeah, we did. We actually, in the past couple of years, we have a friend, Brent, who does a label called Dark Ops, and he's been helping us keep everything in print because it had been very sporadic and weird. But we've kind of taken it over ourselves and been trying to put everything back in print. We've done all the albums except for the first one because Interscope, they re-released it last year without even talking to us. But thankfully they used, we'd done an anniversary pressing probably like 6 years ago where I'd done this big ridiculous layout, and they kept that. So thankfully it still looks great. But yeah, so now at this point, everything should be reasonably easy to get your hands on, which is great.
Okay. So the band controls everything except that first album, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, Universal, Interscope, they have them all, but we've been licensing to keep them in print because they're so sporadic if they do it or not.
Got it. Do you know if all your tapes still exist? in physical form somewhere?
Man, like actual like record like multi-tracks?
Multi-tracks or masters, they weren't burnt up in the Universal Music Fire or anything like
No,
that?
thankfully not. We were we were sweating that for a minute when that happened. But no, I think yeah, everything. Well, what's great is being that Nick, who's all and myself also being like recording nerds, we've at all times made sure we had the multi tracks. Like when we left the studio, we got those, and then when we've got the mixes, we made sure and keep the masters of those. Like at every step we've cataloged everything for ourselves. So even if that happened, we have something to go back to. But
Okay.
what's interesting though is that CD era. It's what we learned with the vinyl stuff is, the masters were 16-bit because they only cared about CDs. So going to do the vinyl where it's been difficult to try to find the original masters at like a 24-bit rate, which you want for vinyl. So some of the things we've had to remaster just to do these new pressings.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Were they all recorded, or most of them recorded to tape originally? Do you have the 2-inch tape multi-tracks?
The first and third record were on tape. The other two were digital. So the first record I'm not sure. That might be in a vault with Universal. The third record, at that point, Universal didn't care about anything but having just the final digital files. So Eric Valentine, who produced that, there was some point where he was moving his studio and he was like, "Hey, I've got your tapes. I don't want them." And so now they're actually sitting in a closet in my house next to my kitchen, just up on a shelf. But have them all.
Okay. At least they're safe there. Yeah. Okay. So is there anything missing from that whole catalog of the band? Nothing that you're like, oh, whatever happened to this? Nothing is unaccounted for.
No, I mean, the only things I think are just the very early demos when Nick was recording stuff, just himself in his bedroom and using, I don't even remember what, programs no one touches anymore, that don't even exist. So some of those demos did get released as like B-sides and stuff on our like early singles. And so I think those are the only things that are kind of at this point unaccounted for. I think we have decent files of them, but we definitely don't have like the multi-tracks, I don't think anymore. And if we do, it's going to take, finding a zip drive that still works and a computer that I can actually use it, So it's kind of probably a lost cause for those, but they're just demos, so it's not the biggest deal.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's some places that I know that where you can get things like a jazz drive reader and a bunch of things.
Man.
The old formats. And I know we had Joe the Vaultmeister Travers from Zappa, who looks after the Zappa archive on the show. And he was talking about all the weird softwares that Frank would use, and this is going back to like the 80s. They have a lot of recordings that they have no idea even how to do a proper codec to even read the tape. It's just this obscure kind of computer language that no one knows anymore. So starting, I think, in the 2000s, it should be pretty achievable to find things that can read those tapes if you really want to.
Yeah, totally.
So you record, you engineer, you produce a lot of bands. When you go into the studio with All American Rejects, and I know you're not the only engineer and producer in the band, do you take a back seat, or how do you allow yourself to reposition yourself in that dynamic?
Yeah, I tend to. It's definitely difficult to be. It's a weird thing when you're in the band and. There's other engineers and other, and like Nick and Tyson are like such amazing songwriters and like just producer minds. I think a lot of times, I've learned pretty much anything I know about producing, I have learned from them. So anytime we're in the studio, it is like, it's a chance for me to learn more because I always feel like they're like 20 steps ahead of me. But that was kind of an interesting thing doing Flagpole Sitta and then these new songs, Sandbox and Easy Come Easy Go, which we didn't use a producer, we didn't have anyone outside, and I feel like maybe we need that. Like we always need having a tiebreaker, have someone who can, and then on the engineering side alleviate our minds from that stuff. it's nice. And maybe that was kind of the benefit of the old school things we did when we had a label that would, flip the bill for a producer. So, yeah, it is, I think all our brains are constantly, when we're working on stuff together, the producer mind, you can't make it go away. And, but yeah, we have to kind of, that is like a thing to figure out, like how we'd all work together as producers and a band. But it's fun.
Yeah, but you got to be great at communicating, and you got to be great at being able to spot something to where it's like, look, this is a decision that I would make, but I know it's not my decision, or I got 25% of the decision. But then you throw it up to a producer. So that's to you and to the band at the moment. That producer spot needs to be an outsider. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, it's nice, it's one of these things where like we've done these songs and people that have heard them seem to think they're cool. So it's like, I don't know that we need it, but it is a really nice thing to be able to, like, especially on the engineering side, to be able to turn off your mind and be like, all right, they've got it. I can just think on a creative side. And it's nice to just have that outside, because when you're in the band and you've been listening to the song and working on it and having all these thoughts, it's nice to have someone with that perspective that can just be like, nah, that's not the best idea, and everyone abides by it. And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. We all trust that, what you're thinking and are bringing something to it that maybe we're too in the muck to see.
And there's a lot of wisdom in that and a lot of learnings. And I suspect, correct me if I'm wrong, but early in your career, there was probably a producer or two that you worked with that you saw as a bit of a mentor, and helped you kind of learn that. Who were some of the producers that helped shape your sensibilities?
It's funny. I feel like every producer we've worked with, even if we kind of didn't always agree with their methods or stuff, it's a learning thing. It's learning what not to do. Like when we did Move Along, Howard Benson, which it was great, and he did an amazing job, but he's kind of a weird cat. And there's certain things about, we're like, well, we don't like what he did there, just even as like on a personal level. Right. But then someone like Eric Valentine, who's just like a mad scientist when it comes to producing and engineering and all that stuff. Like he makes his own gear, and just his methods. Like, everyone works different. That's kind of the one thing I love with recording is like, there's no rules. Everyone does stuff differently. And it's so great to just like pick and choose these different things that different producers do and kind of like make it a part of your own, methods. And, but yeah, like Eric in particular was just like, learned so much from the technical level and just like the just really thoughtfulness of like every little detail. Cause that is a detail oriented man if there ever is one.
Well, I think the position where the band was in, let's say in 2006, is very different than in 2025. So, the needs have changed. Like looking for a producer these days, what are some of the qualifications you look for?
That's a good question, because it is like I think we would want someone who's, fresher to the things than we are, because we're, in the grand scheme of things, we're old men at this point. And so it's nice to have someone who's maybe has like a view of how just, I don't know, music can be now in a way that maybe we wouldn't see. But I mean, a lot, it comes down to vibe too. I mean, that's a big thing. You're going to be spending days and days and days in the studio with someone, you want it to be good. But we did in 2017, the last time we had done stuff before, we did an EP where we just went to LA for a couple of weeks, and every 2 days went to a different producer and different studio and just worked on one song with each guy. And there was something kind of freeing and amazing about that, where it's like, we only have this limited amount of time. Let's just do it. And like, everyone has different, each one of these guys had different like concepts and ideas. And I don't know, I think we really enjoyed that. And that might be a cool way to do it, and not, so we're not as like way down in our heads as much. Because I don't think we could do go somewhere for 6 weeks or more and make a record all at once anymore. That's such a grind and just doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah. Yeah. What you describe is almost like speed dating, right? You kind of make your way
totally
around, but you get a different variety. And this is where the metaphor breaks down. But you get the variety, and then it keeps the excitement in it, right? You're not, like you say,
exactly.
it's not a slog.
Totally. Yeah. And it's just, anytime you walk into a new studio, it's exciting again,
Yeah.
even if you just did it yesterday somewhere else.
So going back in your career, there's some early recordings, some early records. Mr. Crispy.
Yes.
Talk to us on that. And I love the name of this record label. We're not on a label records. So this is in an era mid 90s when records were decidedly not cool. They weren't anywhere, but yet you guys doubled down. Tell me about that.
Well, we're a pop punk band and not a great one, which is why we had to put our records ourselves and thus the label name. But we were coming from punk, and and a 7-inch, that's the first thing you do when you're a band. And I worked at Taco Bell and I saved up all my money there, and I put out 3 7-inches for us. And that was like the dream, to me. It was just like holding a 7-inch,
working at Taco Bell and putting out the 7 inches. That's the dream.
And it really was. I could not have been more stoked at that point.
Like, when did that spark hit that, oh, wow, I could make my own record. I could take my Taco Bell money and kind of make this happen. Was there a record or someone instrumental in your life that helped kind of nudge you in that direction?
No, I think it was just, like just punk. I read Maxim Rock and Roll every month, and that it was like I bought 7-inches out of there. It's constantly mail ordering, and there was just that thing of like, you just didn't wait around for anybody. We lived in in Oklahoma. There weren't any labels who were going to put anything out, and so we just knew like we have to do it ourselves. If we wanted to make it happen, and then even on the manufacturing side, I don't even remember. I found some magazine. What was it? I can't even remember now what magazine it was, but in the back there was like a couple like real small ads for like pressing plants. And then, we did that for the first one. It kind of was sketchy, but we got them. And then later I learned about United, which was like, oh, this is like the least expensive. And so we went with United, which at the time wasn't the greatest quality, but I was working Taco Bell. and yeah. And just learning as we went.
Quality wasn't top of mind these days for any area of. Now, were you in an area of Oklahoma where like you get some good touring bands through?
Occasionally, yeah. We were like in Oklahoma City, and and so then it was like it was definitely DIY shows. Like the big venue, in quotes, was our American Legion Hall in town. But lots of great shows came through there, like just people friends of ours putting on for us like really awesome great bands that in the grand scheme of things weren't very big or anything, but to us it was amazing. And 100 kids would come out. We had like a fun little scene, but big shows usually would pass over and either go to Dallas or Lawrence or Kansas City. So there's a lot of road trips made to those cities for shows.
All right. Because I'd imagine Oklahoma City still a pretty decent market back then for, bands like All and some of the groups that would come through. Are those the type of bands that you would see in your hometown?
Oh yeah. I mean, All definitely came through. Yeah. Any kind of the 90s punk stuff, bands were coming in, like All in particular is like maybe my favorite band of all time. So very, very stoked anytime them or Descendants or anything, because late 90s Descendants, well, they never came through. We had to go to Lawrence for them, but yeah, anytime All was anywhere near, we made the trek.
That's sweet spot in the 90s with Everything Sucks and Mass Nerder. That lot of albums,
so good. I
know, phenomenal. So not to be divisive, but on the Descendants All camp, you're squarely in the All camp.
I'm in it's all one thing.
Yeah.
But I do love All. I mean, I love it all.
Yeah.
I was actually really stoked, speaking of record nerdy shit with All. They just pressed Live +1 for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And on the inside of that, I was at those shows, and in the CD of it, there's like a couple like crowd shots that are real small, and I'm like in one of the shots, and now it's like this gatefold, and it's really big, and you can see my dumb face screaming now, which is exciting. I was like, there's still one of my favorite bands ever, so it's like, holy shit, look, I'm on the record.
Oh, that's great. So they didn't just kind of blow up a shitty image that they had from back when. They actually went back to the original negatives and they found and actually
It looks like it because all the artwork looks really crisp and clean. So like they must have actually still had the files.
Oh shit. Okay. All right. Well, we gotta now we have a quest. Everyone, find Mike in the gatefold sleeve of Live Plus One. So Mr. Crispy gave way to Euclid Crash. Is that?
Oh yeah.
It? Okay. All right. Now there was a release. Oh geez, way back it was CD, but more recently there were lathe cuts of FMO. Why revisit that 16 years? I mean, I know from as a musician, I'd love to have my old stuff on record just for shits and giggles. But, talk to me about getting that lathe cut recently.
That was just, the singer and guitar player in that band, in the years since have gotten married. And there was a point where, I don't know if you know about Kunaki. Have you heard of that place? No. It's like a place where you can order literally like one-off lathe cuts. And they do CDs and stuff. It's somewhere in like near Reno, I think. Anyway, it's like not very expensive. It's like $30 for one, and they print a cover and has labels. And so yeah, I was like, well, I'm gonna get that for them, And so I just did a couple of them real quick. They don't sound amazing, but it was just kind of like a fun thing. And then I think I put it up on Discogs. I was like, why not?
Yeah, okay.
Because I was cataloging all my stuff, so I was like, I might as well add it on there.
Okay, so you control.
But there's only a couple.
So you go up on Discogs, you correct things, you fix things on Discogs.
I mean, I will if I find some stuff that's not right. I'm not afraid.
Oh, good. Okay, well, someone's got to be the keeper of the truth, right?
Right.
That's good. So how many were made? What, 4 or something like that?
I mean, 2 or 3 actually.
Okay.
Yeah, not many.
All right, because I know with some artists, especially with labels like Joyful Noise, they'll make like 100 something of a lathe cut.
Yeah, these are really just more souvenirs for us than actual any kind of release.
Sure, yeah. Remember when kind of thing.
Exactly.
To be able to do. Okay, well, cool. So, all right. So it looks like AAR is revving back up. Do you have any favorite record shops around the world, United States or outside?
Oh man. Well, I'd love Double Decker in Allentown that just closed recently, which that record store is one of the best ever. And I guess, the guy was just done with it, but sad to see that go. But man, I mean, Japan, we talked about that earlier. It's insane.
Time Bomb's phenomenal. Yeah. I spent a lot of time down there.
That, I mean, anytime, we haven't gotten to go there in a long time at this point, but oh man, that was always my favorite because it's just, not only would they just have the most insane, like American records you never see in America, but then even like their dollar bin is like, well, this is like a $50 record in America and it's, 300 yen here. And I'm like, what the hell? I don't know. I loaded up a lot whenever we'd go there, and it's my favorite place to record shop for sure.
Yeah. Everything that's, like the Japanese market wants, I mean, my perception of it, the Japanese market wants everything excellent, near mint, or mint. Those things will be really pricey. But anything that's like VG++ or less, they kind of want to get out of there. Like there's not a whole lot of people that really want this. So I picked up some amazing records that, would have been, $500 elsewhere, and you pick them up for 50, just because they're trying to clear them out of the way.
And,
so,
and I'm very fine with a VG plus, like I'm not a big condition, fiend. It's like, as long as it's not fucked, I'm happy and complete. I hate when like an insert's missing and it kind of eats at me.
Yeah. You constantly do these things, like you purchase upgrades for existing ones. Like you'll have that copy of, I don't know, Nervous Breakdown at home, and then all of a sudden you see an excellent one. Do you get that and then sell your old one?
Not too much. I'm pretty content. Like if it's in decent condition, I'm happy. I will buy, if something's missing something and I come across one again, then I will be like, okay, and then I'm perpetuating selling a incomplete one because I'll get rid of the one that's now like whatever I took the insert from.
Do you
But
buy like really beat up copies of something that maybe, like if you found a Cough Cool that was really beat to hell, I mean, maybe playable, maybe not, for cheap, would you take that home?
I mean, that I would for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on how crazy the record is. I mean, if it's like a really expensive record, then yeah, then my tolerance does decrease to where I'm like, well, it's beat up, but it's better than paying $1,200 for this. Then I'm cool with that. As long as
Okay.
it plays decently, I'm usually pretty happy. I'm not too much of a stickler in that respect.
Well, what's the rarest thing you have in your collection? Like the thing that's maybe just, only a handful of copies that you know of.
I came across, I mean, this is probably almost 15 years ago, a Descendants All test press from like the original pressing. And so that might be, there's like a few test pressing things I have like that are pretty rare. I guess probably the rarest things of like a regular release, man. Nothing's jumping out right at me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I'm looking for a Germs Lexicon Devil. That's what.
I
Oh,
I
you're going to
have a
make me.
couple of those.
Oh, you fucker. Okay.
I'm
So,
sorry. I found I got a pink cover one from somebody, and it was actually the cover had never even been folded, which is fucking crazy. And he ended up folding it to ship it to me, which I'm glad because I didn't want to have to be the one to do it.
okay.
And
Yeah.
then I got one of the goldenrod ones later, which is a little more beat up, but it was a price that I was like, well, shit, I have to get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. I'm looking to find one. I know I could buy one now for about $3,000, but I'm like,
My God.
that's against the ethos right now.
Yeah, totally. No, because I definitely was, in the lower hundreds on mine. That's the thing is like, yeah, that is like I mentioned earlier with that Dick's record, that's like a $3,000 record now. And it's just like, I'll never be able to bring myself to pay that. Like there's something about me that I reach a certain threshold and it's like, no matter how much I want it, there's like, you can't. Yeah.
And it's hard to justify as well because it's like, look, at the end of the day, there's other versions out there, just like that Negative Approach, and it's probably recorded with like an SM58 in a garage. So, at the end of the day, am I really going to hear a difference? It's just,
right.
It's kind of bragging rights at that point.
Totally. I have a second press of that. And it always, the thing about that record is it has such a lack of low end. It's almost impressive. Like there is no bass at all on that record. It's crazy.
Oh, very good. Do you have a really nice system that you play this on? What's your audio system?
I'm fairly just, decent run of the mill. Like I have like, an audio, like I have a couple record players in my house for like an Audio Technica and why is my mind going blank on the other brand? But, like just record players that are like $300-400 because I don't know. I'm not even though like with mixing and stuff, like I have to be very diligent and have very nice equipment. With just listening, I don't know. I've never been a huge audiophile guy in that respect. And when it comes to having to listen to all these test presses of things I work on, I kind of want something closer to the average consumers. So I know, things are translating what they're going to hear. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've always just kind of been middle of the road as far as actual like gear in that respect.
Yeah, I always tended to do that. And then recently I got a really good deal on like a really nice system some guy was just trying to get rid of. And
nice.
I it couldn't pass it up. It was, 10 cents on the dollar. It's like, this was my chance to go tube.
Oh, nice.
And what happened was a lot of my high end records sound gorgeous. Like we play like something from Tool, Fear Inoculum, or a jazz record, and it sounds gorgeous. When you put something on like the Saints, something that was recorded in a garbage can, it really exposes the flaws to a high degree. Yeah. So I just have a regular system kind of downstairs. This is almost like my punk system. My system upstairs is now for my audiophile bourgeois records.
That's funny. Yeah, because that I can totally understand that from the audio engineering stuff because that's what you look for in studio monitors is something that's not necessarily the most comfortable to listen to or pleasant to listen to. It's a thing that exposes all the things that need to be fixed. And so, I can totally see that happening. That's crazy.
Yeah, you got to give it the play test in a 1982 Toyota Corolla.
Totally.
Cool. All right. So, Mike, anything else coming up this year? Anything you want to talk about we haven't talked about?
No, I mean, just with Rejects, we'll be on the road. We're going to be releasing a couple songs, Sandbox and Easy Come, Easy Go. So keep an eye on that. We still have, we just released the 7 inches for Flagpole Sitta. Those are on our website. The one-sided 7-inch on like cool neon vinyl.
Nice.
Yeah. So just hopefully we keep riding on.
Excellent. Any plans to tour or to play shows beyond the U.S. borders?
Oh man, nothing at the moment. I would love to. We haven't been to Australia since 2012, I think.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll get back there or anywhere. We played the UK last year. That was the first time we'd been there in a decade. So
if you go Australia, Japan's not that far.
I know, right? I always try to plant that in everyone else's heads.
Well, Mike, thanks for spending time with us. We hope to see you down here soon. Again, I want to draw people's attention to All American Rejects. There seems to have been a reignition of the engines here. There's that video up there for Flagpole Sitta. The new singles, Easy Come, Easy Go. Those will be available. There will be links in this episode page to get those. And I'm keeping my eye on them because I bet you there's probably more in the queue. I know there's only certain things you can talk about, Mike. So I would predict that 2025 we will see much more from the All American Rejects. And hopefully those Screeching Weasel reissues and other stuff that you have your hands in. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Definitely that's coming.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
What a lovely dude. Oh, man, I'd love to be able to go through his record collection someday. Maybe one of these days we'll be able to triangulate the earth somehow to where we can perhaps even do a bit of digging together. Hopefully Mike and the AAR guys will make it out to Australia, and I'll show them some of my favorite digging spots down under. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, I need a favor from you guys. Go up and leave positive reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. 5 out of 5 stars, whatever. Say something nice. That is always appreciated. And a big thank you to those of you who are sharing these episodes on social media, Reddit forums, and Facebook groups, all that stuff. Again, that is so, so appreciated. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.